Some moments in WWE weren't built on promos, tension, or months of storytelling. They happened fast, brutal, unrelenting. The kind of violence that couldn't be packaged for replay. These weren't scripted betrayals. These were full-blown beatdowns. It started with a reunion. Shawn Michaels stood in the ring, unaware of what was about to happen. Triple H stepped behind him with a sledgehammer in both hands. The crowd wasn't chanting. There were no cheers. Just the sight of steel raised high in the air and then brought down directly into Michaels' back. The shot landed between the shoulder blades full force, dropping Michaels instantly. He didn't roll away or try to escape. His body froze. Triple H stood over him, stared for a few seconds, then turned and walked out without saying a word. The ring was quiet. Nothing about it felt like a wrestling segment. If you're new here, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We bring you stories, news, and everything going on in WWE. Seth Rollins had just been stretchered out after taking multiple chair shots and F5s at ringside when Brock Lesnar reappeared backstage. The ambulance doors were already closing when Lesnar ripped them open, dragged Rollins out, and hoisted him up without hesitation. He turned toward the metal stretcher and delivered an F5 that smashed Rollins' body spine first onto the frame. The stretcher tipped from the impact, and Rollins rolled off, clutching his ribs but unable to move. Lesnar stepped back, stared for a second, then turned and walked off. Officials hovered nearby, frozen. The damage was done and there was no follow-up. Just Rollins lying there, broken, bleeding, and silent. Randy Orton stood in the ring with Vince McMahon just feet away. There was no confusion about what was coming, only when. Orton stepped forward and launched a running punt kick directly into Vince's head. Vince dropped immediately. His body went limp before it even hit the mat. Orton didn't check the damage. He simply stepped around Vince's body and stood in the center of the ring. Then came Stephanie. She slid into the ring, reached her father, and tried to protect him. Orton grabbed her, pulled her in, and dropped her with a sudden RKO that spiked her head into the mat. Before anyone could react, Orton leaned over her motionless body and kissed her on the lips. Triple H sprinted down the ramp, but it was too late. Security held him back as Orton calmly left through the ropes, his work already done. Seth Rollins stood behind Roman Reigns, steel chair in hand. Roman didn't see it coming. The first shot cracked across his back, loud and sharp, folding him forward. Rollins didn't stop. He swung again and again, each shot heavier than the last. Dean Ambrose turned, confused, but by the time he realized what was happening, the next chair shot was aimed at him. It hit his ribs and dropped him to a knee. Rollins struck again, this time across the shoulder blades, and Ambrose collapsed. Both of his Shield brothers lay face down on the mat while Rollins stood in the center, holding the chair like a weapon that had done its job. Kevin Owens stood across the ring from Chris Jericho during what was supposed to be a celebration. Balloons and gifts covered the ring. A list sat in the middle of the table. Jericho picked it up, smiling, then stopped reading. His expression froze as he asked, "Why is my name on this?" Owens struck without a word. A punch to the head dropped Jericho onto the mat, and then Owens mounted him and unloaded with fists to the skull. The table shattered when Jericho's back hit it. Owens dragged him to the corner, placed a steel chair around his neck, and then ran full speed, driving Jericho neck first into the turnbuckle. The party decorations were still hanging as Jericho rolled out of the ring, clutching his throat. Edge leaned into Mick Foley with a steel chair, slamming it into Foley's midsection and doubling him over. Then came the spear. Edge charged across the ring and launched both of them through a flaming table at ringside. The table exploded in heat as the two bodies collided with it. Foley's back caught the worst of it, fire licking his shirt as he rolled off the wreckage. Edge lay beside him, barely moving, but with a sick grin stretched across his face. The table was gone. Only scorched wood and two burned bodies were left behind. AJ Styles faced off with Shane McMahon, and what began as a tense standoff turned into something much darker. After being left off the WrestleMania card, Styles snapped. Backstage, Shane was walking toward his SUV when the camera caught Styles charging from behind. He rammed Shane face first into a garage door, then threw punches without stopping. Styles grabbed Shane by the hair and smashed him head first into a steel toolbox, opening a gash above the eye. Shane dropped to the floor, barely conscious. Styles backed up, ran forward, and kicked him straight in the ribs while he was down. Producers tried to interfere, but Styles shoved them away and threw one final punch to the back of Shane's head before walking off. The Big Show didn't say a word before what happened next. In a match with Mark Henry, Show was knocked into the corner, stunned, but still standing. Henry stepped across the ring, grabbed Show around the waist, and delivered a running world's strongest slam that cracked the mat. But he wasn't done. Henry left the ring, grabbed a steel chair and placed it on Show's chest. Then he went to the second rope, a man his size never belonged up there, and came crashing down with a splash that folded the chair into Show's body. Show's limbs twitched as the crowd fell silent. Trainers ran down instantly, but Henry just stood, breathing heavy, looking at the damage. Braun Strowman didn't wait for an invitation. Roman Reigns was being loaded into an ambulance after their match. His body was bruised, ribs taped. As the doors were closing, Strowman ripped one open and dragged Roman back out by the vest. He threw him against a concrete wall like dead weight. Roman tried to get up, but Strowman lifted him overhead and tossed him onto a metal storage cart that flipped over on impact. Reigns rolled off, motionless. That should have been it. But Strowman wasn't finished. He slammed the ambulance door shut, walked to the back, and flipped the entire vehicle onto its side. The cameras cut quickly. Roman lay inside, buried in silence. Dean Ambrose stood across from Seth Rollins during a contract signing. The tension was high, but no one expected what came next. Rollins extended his hand to shake. Ambrose didn't take it. Instead, he headbutted Rollins so hard it knocked him backward into the ropes. Rollins bounced forward and walked straight into Dirty Deeds on the steel-plated stage. Ambrose picked him up again, this time for a second DDT, and planted his head straight into the edge of the table. Officials rushed in, but Ambrose backed them off. He took one of the chairs, folded it, and slammed it down across Rollins' back one last time before leaving the ring. Undertaker and Mankind inside Hell in a Cell was never meant to go the way it did. Mankind climbed to the top, trying to create a moment. But what followed was something no one was prepared for. Undertaker met him on the roof, grabbed him by the shirt, and threw him from the top of the cage. Mankind flew over 15 feet through the air and crashed through the announce table. The sound was sharp and final. Medical staff rushed in, but Mankind refused to leave. Minutes later, the match continued, and Undertaker chokeslammed him straight through the cell roof. The cage gave way, and Mankind dropped again, this time landing hard on a steel chair. His tooth was shoved through his upper lip, but the match wasn't stopped. It just kept going. Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman clashed on Raw in what started like a normal match. That changed when Strowman charged Lashley through the stage wall. The LED panels exploded as both men vanished through the sparks and smoke. The camera cut instantly, sirens echoing as smoke rose from the wreckage. Trainers and referees surrounded the rubble as both men lay motionless beneath cables and steel. It wasn't an angle with a payoff. It was a violent moment that shook the entire arena. Sheamus and Big E fought in a Falls Count Anywhere match that turned into something much more violent than expected. Outside the ring, Sheamus pulled a steel chain from beneath the steps and wrapped it around his fist. He struck Big E in the jaw once, then again, then a third time that dropped Big E to his knees. Blood started running down his face as Sheamus grabbed him by the arm, dragged him to the production area, and slammed him against a wall of equipment cases. He picked up one of the crates and dropped it onto Big E's leg, pinning it to the floor. The referee tried to step in. Sheamus shoved him out of the way and walked off without even going for the pin. Randy Orton and Edge stood in the ring on January 27, 2020's Monday Night Raw, an emotional return night for the Rated R superstar. Orton approached, hit him with an RKO in mid-hug, and when Edge staggered up, Orton grabbed a steel chair and thundered it across his back. The coach's rage wasn't done. Orton slid 2 chairs into the ring, lifted one for a con chair 2 across Edge's head, and left him crumpled, chest heaving, neck vulnerable. No rescue followed. Orton simply stared, then walked out as Edge lay motionless under the harsh arena lights. Backstage after the match, Zach Gowen sat slumped in his wheelchair, bleeding and barely conscious. Brock Lesnar stormed in like he hadn't finished making his point. Without a word, he grabbed the handles of the wheelchair and shoved it full speed toward a concrete wall. Gowan crashed hard, the chair flipped, and his body folded awkwardly on the floor. Lesnar stood over him, breathing heavy, watching the wreckage like it meant nothing. No medics rushed in, no one stopped him. Just Gowan motionless on the floor, and Lesnar walking off like it was routine. Let us know in the comments what moment shocked you the most.